The prophet of thought. Open your mind, 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 open your mind. Open your mind, 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 open your mind. Open your mind.
The good doctor is in the house, the house, the house. The good doctor, the good doctor.
Open your mind.
In the house, the house, the house. The good doctor in the house, the house, the house, the house, the house.
Open your mind.
And peace, folks. Welcome back to another edition of the Proper Thought series right here on the old T.P.O.T YouTube page. I'm your host, X, of course, but you knew that already. That's why your black asses are here. But tonight, there's another edition of the Ask the Doc series. And tonight we'll have the good Doc Phoenix coming through tonight. But y'all know, as always, before we get started, I always start the show off with thanking you good folks for everything that you do for this here platform. You know, your likes, your shares, your views, your subscriptions, and of course, your hard-earned pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and 50-cent pieces. Because COX knows you don't have to do it. You don't have to watch these damn videos. You don't have to share them, like them, look at them. And you definitely don't have to drop your hard-earned coins on this platform. But you good folks, man, y'all choose to do it. Y'all support this channel so much, man. And you know, I want y'all to know, man, every damn night that I come up here, that I do not take you lightly. I don't take what you do lightly. And you know, I'm looking forward to 2021 because we got a lot of good things, man, coming down the pipe, man. And hopefully you good folks will continue to stick around and check out what we have cooking on this here YouTube page. But I want you to know, man, I'm humbled, I'm honored, I'm thankful, man, and I'm appreciative, man, for all you good folks, man. And I don't say it to kiss your black butts, because by now you know X don't kiss no butts. I say what I say because I genuinely mean it. And I am genuinely thankful to you good folks. All right? All right. So let's get at it. Like I said, the good Dr. Phoenix will be in here tonight, and we'll be chopping it up. and he'll be taking your questions. That's if you can get some in edgewise, because I'm going to be hitting the good doc with questions, because the doc, my boy, I like the doc. And, I got some questions for him myself, because he is a brother who has great understanding about these things that I think about. So, as soon as he get up here, man, we're going to go ahead and get it in. But before we get started, and check your email, good doc, I see you in the chat. Go ahead and check your email, man, because I did send the link. Yeah, before we get started, a programming note, because January 13th, Ike Ogamian will be here, and he will be talking about the elements of success. That's right. I know most of y'all are probably familiar with brother Ike. I mean, he's been making the rounds. He's been seen on quite a few places besides his own YouTube page. But Ike will be in the house January 13th, right here on the T.P.O.T YouTube page. You freaking know. Now, I know we are starting a little earlier than we usually do, y'all. That's because it's New Year's Eve, right? And I'm probably only going to go for maybe 2 hours, because everybody is here. My daughter's here, my grandbabies are here, and the grandbabies, they want me to shoot off some damn fireworks, because, I got a stockpile of fireworks, y'all. I keep many, many crates of fireworks, and they know I have them. So, oh, the fireworks. So I already promised them I was gonna do it. So I ain't gonna be able to stay long, because they're gonna beat me in the head, and they'll be knocking on the damn door once it get to be like 10:30, because they want me to shoot off fireworks. So I'm only gonna stay a couple hours. Uh yeah, but we're gonna throw down tonight, because tonight, we're gonna celebrate, so I'm gonna try to get off of here, no later than like 10:30, because yeah, everybody's here, y'all. Goddamn everybody. God damn it. But yeah, um January 13th, brother Ike Ogamian will be here, and we'll be discussing the elements of success. And we won't just be discussing the business aspect of it. We'll be discussing all the other things too, the things outside of business, to prepare yourself for these things. And of course, we have other stuff coming down the pipe too. So just stay tuned, man, and check out the thumbnails. Even though we might take next week off, we might not do anything next week. It's a possibility. So just stay tuned. All right. All right. But tonight, the good Doc Phoenix is going to be in the house. And this is one of my favorite guests right here, believe it or not. He is one of my favorite people to have on the page. So, without further delay, the one and only Doc Phoenix. What's good, Doc Phoenix? Doc Phoenix.
Good evening, brother. Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, man. Happy New Year, man. Happy New Year, man. I'm so glad you could come on tonight, man, because boy, I got a truckload of questions, boy, I want to ask you, brother.
Oh, absolutely. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Yeah, so the last time we spoke, we were talking about COVID, of course. And it's been a little while. And since then, they've developed quite a few vaccines since we spoke last. So let me get your take on this whole vaccine thing first and foremost. What's your take on the fact that I think there's three right now that's available, correct?
Yes, yes. So you have Moderna, Pfizer, and oh my God, I can't think of the other one. Can't think of the other one right now. It'll come to me in a moment.
AstraZeneca?
It'll come to me.
AstraZeneca's made one, right?
Yes, AstraZeneca. Yeah.
Okay. So what's your take on the whole vaccine thing, Doc?
Um. Well, specifically, it's interesting. Yes, that because my school just sent out an email. They weren't, as of now, they're not requiring all all med students to actually be to actually have the vaccine. So that's interesting. But I do think, in general, for most folks for people who are in healthcare, I do see that being a requirement, a condition of employment. I do see that being part of the deal for folks in healthcare, and this is for folks who are in direct patient care, and even people who are sort of, in indirect patient care roles. So even folks like, admin, HR. I ultimately see in a scenario where basically anyone with any career job related to the healthcare industry, I would not be the least bit surprised if this becomes a condition of employment to have the vaccine at some point. Um, Now, however, with that said, my personal thoughts on the vaccine, um, I'm I'm kind of ambivalent right now. I would say that for the most part, I know there's a number of reactions. I know there are people out here who have had adverse reactions to it. Some even anaphylactic reactions. And anaphylactic is a severe reaction that usually causes issues with breathing, can ultimately lead to respiratory and cardiac failure if not treated. Uh, but I it's not to the extent where there's just so many folks who are having negative reactions that I would say, oh well, everyone needs to go out, everyone needs to not take that. I don't think that's the case. Um, but I do believe that, some of the reactions that are being had are somewhat concerning. It sounds like some of the reactions I've seen have been related specifically to some of the carrier molecules that are involved with the vaccine itself. And so that could be that's a little bit concerning. But however, I don't think is risen to the level where it is, well, this there, we just need a nationally halt this mass vaccination process and say, well, there's, we've had, you know, maybe a maybe a few dozen people out of over 2 million, because right now you have roughly about 2 million or so people who have been vaccinated, which is actually well below what was the targeted amount of people to be vaccinated by this period today, by this point today. The goal was to have roughly somewhere around 20 million or so people. You have about 2 million people or so who have been vaccinated. So we're about only hit about 10% of that goal thus far. Um, but again, right now, I don't see a need where I would just outright just say, I'm wholesale against this. People shouldn't have it per se. Um, and then and then you turn then people are just, I just don't see a scenario where I don't see a scenario happening right now where you just have tons of people just having mass adverse reactions to the vaccination that would warrant halting of the vaccination process
Mm. So, are you going to be taking the shot, good doc? Are you going to be taking it?
Yes, I will. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, if you take it and you live, I think I, I want to know where you take it, doc. I want to know. I want you to call me. Well, X, I did.
I will let
I'm
you
still
know that.
alive.
Well, I will let you know that because, ironically enough, my wife is also a healthcare provider, so she's in the mix as
Okay.
well too.
Okay.
So it's just one of
Okay.
those things where that this just kind of comes with the territory if you're in healthcare in general, and ultimately, especially for those in healthcare or those who have jobs, careers where you're kind of in close contact consistently with people, you might want to really think about that, because again, what has really caused these massive explosions of the virus since midsummer of this year has really been really that community contact. So people are going to really what was known as these super spread events, and then they go back to their neighborhoods, their their families, and then they were kind of spreading it locally, if you will.
Mm.
And so this is what's really been fueling these mass waves of infections, is where you have folks who have generally been asymptomatic. They attended an event, they contracted it, were asymptomatic, go back, they go back to their families and to their communities, and they're spreading it that way. And so this is really what has been one of the driving forces behind really this explosion in 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 the current numbers that we've been seeing in relation to COVID, to the current virus, and also to what we see with the current right now, what this country is averaging about more than 3,000 deaths per day from this virus.
Yeah. And let me ask you this, Doc. What's your take on this new? Because there's a new version of it now, and it's made its way to the shores of the United States. So what's your take on? And I think you talked about this earlier, because we spoke about this like early in the year, and you
Yes.
talked about it mutating. So go ahead.
Yeah, and this is to be expected with any virus, specifically RNA-based viruses, which inherently by nature are unstable. Um, they're more unstable as opposed to DNA viruses, yeah, and such. But again, we did talk about this way back early in this year, before the lockdowns and before all the stuff we saw
Yeah.
was transpired over the last 11 to 12 months thus far. We talked about this, and I think this should have always been expected.
Mhm.
All viruses mutate. The virus you get vaccinated this year for the flu virus, you get vaccinated the next year is for a completely different strain. The strain is never the same. And and at least in my opinion, um, I would think that with COVID-19, this virus, this virus has proven to be quite resilient, but also very adaptable. And right now I think there's two states where they confirmed cases. One was Colorado, and the other was I want to say California. Maybe it might have been California. I think was the other state where the other case was of this new strain was confirmed to be at. Um,
Mhm.
with that said, also have been new strains found in South Africa. I believe I believe in Nigeria as well. So, but I mean, at least since the very beginning of this pandemic, there's been talk that scientists and medical providers believe that there has been there have been a pretty there has been at least 3 or 4 different strains of the virus that have currently been in rotation right now. Now, granted, the vaccine should be effective against these newer strains, because right now what I'm understanding that these newer strains have a very high infectivity rate, where you're looking at 70-80% in some cases from some of the studies and estimates that are out here right now. So I just think in general, the vaccine should be effective at protecting against that. But nonetheless, this is the cornerstone of dealing with this virus, as with any pandemic, is practicing those public health policies. So again, distancing, wearing masks. Even when I'm out at the store, my wife and I were out at the store, about a week or so ago, and we're checking out, and someone comes like within like a few feet of us, like 4 feet of us, and I'm like, you got to get away from us, you got to
Yeah.
back up, and they're looking crazy at me, and I'm like, well, get back. And they just kind of looking. And again, this is just good public health practice and policy, but just in general, this is one of these deals where everyone has to do their part to kind of minimize the spreading. And as it pertains to black folks should be exceptionally cautious, given that black folks do account for about almost a quarter of all COVID 19 virus cases in this country right now. And
Yeah.
certainly, Black people have higher mortality rates from this virus as opposed to other groups of people.
Mm. Well, we got a question for you already, Doc Phoenix, from my good friend, Dr. Yaya. Was good, Dr. Yaya. She says, why do RNA viruses have a high mutation rate?
Well, just in general, RNA in of itself is very unstable, degrades easily, doesn't take much of a change in conditions to really destabilize RNA, and so that ultimately what leads to that high mutation rate for those types of viruses.
Well, let me ask this, Doc Phoenix. Now, we spoke, like I said, we spoke about this whole, thing mutating because you talked about this at like the top of the year. You said this thing was going to mutate, on some old Nostradamus type shit, So when they said this new strain had been discovered, I was like, damn, that damn Doc Phoenix said this shit was going to happen. But how is it that they can have this one vaccine? And I don't want to sound too much like an idiot here, but
Mhm.
how can they have this one vaccine that's able to vaccinate you from the new strain? Because isn't the vaccine based off of the old strain, or no? What am I missing here?
No, so there was a new technology that was used to develop the this virus's the vaccine for this virus, and so it was a mRNA based vaccine, which is a newer technology. I mean, the concept has been around, excuse me, for quite some time. It's just that this is what was applied in the production of the vaccine for this virus, and the principal reasoning being that one, mRNA is sort of a universal type of deal in the sense that where you know to produce, for example, the vaccine really looks at attacking the production of the spike protein, which is what COVID-19 uses to adhere to a cell, to a normal cell. So you have a normal cell, and then you have the virus, and so the spike protein is used by the virus to adhere to a normal healthy cell, and that's how it gets entry into the cell. And so by attacking the ability for that to form, that spike protein to form, which is what mRNA does, is basically a series of messages that tells ribosomes to produce this particular protein. And so it's very universal in the way that the vaccine approaches it, as opposed to where something like a flu vaccine, for example, might specifically target antibody antigen complex that you would see in this particular strain of a virus. So attacking by going specifically for mRNA, you're looking at sort of a universal way at producing a vaccine, simply because this is what is required to produce protein, to code for protein in the cell. I don't
Okay. Okay.
the the is that the well, I guess to try to make this really simple, without it being so technical and stuff like that, I would just say really mRNA is a very the machinery that cells use to produce proteins. mRNA is principally responsible for that, and so by using that, it becomes a universal way of attacking a cell, if you will.
Okay. We got
Or
another
excuse me,
question.
attacking the protein synthesis of a cell.
We got another question from the good doctor. She wants to know, is that like having two viruses in the same cell?
No, no, this is not like an attenuated or really toned down version of a live virus like you typically see, let's say with like the flu or something like that. No, this is not that. This is essentially where you're really attacking the ability for this virus to produce a specific protein that allows it to adhere to a normal healthy cell. That's how this this virus is able to infect a normal healthy cell with this spike protein. So if that protein isn't formed, the cell can't be infected by that virus.
Hmm. Well, I know when we had spoke earlier this year, I believe I asked you, do you think, because I had saw Dr. Fauci on TV, and he had said it. He only said it once. He let it slip out one time. He never said it again. And he said that all of us were going to catch it, right, at some point. Do you think that that's still the case, Doc Phoenix, or is it has it changed? Has that changed?
No, I would agree with that for the most part. Yeah, I would think that'd be very true. At some point, people will catch it. In fact, it's highly likely many people have caught it and just never knew they had it because they were asymptomatic. And I think that that's part of the reason why what has really been driving this explosion of cases of the virus cases in this country, where you've seen this country in like a 2 week period just just had more than 1 million cases that came about in this country in just like a 2 week period. In this was like early November, late October, early November, where we saw this massive explosion. And right now, this is what continues to drive this process because we're in flu season, obviously, but we also have this going on. So yes, I do agree with that. I think it's highly likely that you're gonna have just about everyone catch this.
Hmm.
I would not disagree with that. It just again it comes down to how do people exhibit some of those signs and symptoms of the virus. Again, we know that in older people they tend to have more adverse effect. The virus tends to have more adverse effects with them. It tends to hit them harder. Younger people, yes, and then no. For some younger people, they may be more susceptible, but then a lot of that also is related to the state of your current health. Are you healthy to begin with? Because you do have older people who get it that are completely asymptomatic, and then you have some people who get it that were healthy, but then they have some complications that lead to hospitalizations or thereof. And so ultimately, what what it comes down to is that people will. I will argue most people will get this, if not all, but then a good portion of the population are going to get it and will never have any symptoms. And so then you go around your family, you go around friends, you go around your children, your wife, husband, whatever. And so you're sort of unconsciously spreading the virus and not knowing it. And this is kind of where you've seen where testing in this country, in my opinion, has really been an abject failure because the most you have typically, so you have a period in which a virus kind of builds up in the body. So in the case of this virus, it takes about a week, so about 7 days. So if you're tested anywhere in that initial 7 days from you initially being infected with the virus, it's highly unlikely you would get a it's highly likely, excuse me, you would get a negative test. Now, if you test beyond that 7 day period, it's highly likely you will get a positive test. But keep in mind, in that 7 days where the virus was building up in the body, you were still infectious and you were still able to spread it, even though you most likely had a negative test.
Hmm. So you are more so there's never a point when you have it, Doc, that you can't give it to other people, right? It's like, but when is it the worst? When you first get it, or when you're starting to come out of it, you get it and you're starting to recover? I mean,
So
when are you more likely to pass it on to other people?
most likely in that initial period, that initial 7 days. That's the most likely part because as you get it, let's say once you get past that, maybe you start to get some symptoms, then you go get tested, you get positive. But as you start to recover from the virus gradually begins to the concentration levels of the virus begins to gradually taper off in your system. So you become less symptomatic, but and so that's really, I will argue that you're probably less likely to spread it sort of in that period where you're you're sort of, you really have gotten beyond that stretch where you're not going to have any severe complications. You might have just had, some headaches, some aches, some pains, some stuff like that, and you're starting to recover. But that initial period where you're infected versus to the point of where that virus begins to really build up to the levels where it starts to cause symptoms in you, I would say that's your most infectious point.
Hmm. So I believe the most dangerous people is the people who don't know they have it. I mean,
I would
am I wrong?
absolutely
Am I wrong there?
I would absolutely agree with that, because again, this is why you've seen the explosion of cases in this country over the last 6 to 7 months. Essentially, since July 4th of this summer, we've seen cases of this virus in this country just completely get out of control, explode, explode. So right now you're looking at in California. California, for example, has no ICU beds. They're literally having to turn away ambulances. You're seeing in a lot of Midwestern states, they were pretty much at their ICUs were at full capacity. And just to keep something in mind, because I know there are naysayers out there who believe that, well, everyone's not getting sick and they're not having these severe complications that are leading to hospitalizations. But here's the problem: if you only have about this country roughly has about 100,000 or so ICU beds. Now, keep in mind, ICU is not exclusively for people who have COVID-19. Okay, the ICU is not exclusively for them, but so you have other people who are in ICU. So you have people who, a lot of diabetics end up in ICU. So if you know anybody with diabetes, they have complications like diabetic ketoacidosis, something like that they ultimately end up in the hospital for. They get recurrent infections. They might get MRSA, which is methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus, which is basically an antibiotic resistant infection. Um, or you have folks who are in there for cancer, for example. So people who have heart conditions end up in the ICU. A number of conditions can bring you to the ICU. Okay, so taking that with the fact that you're having to repurpose entire units of a hospital specifically into ICUs to deal specifically with COVID patients is the problem, because now you're taking resources away from other patients who have other pertinent health conditions that also require hospitalization and require most likely ICU care, critical care.
Are are hospitals safe, Doc? Is it safe to be in there? Say you're not going in there for COVID. Say you have something else going on. Say you
Mm-hmm.
broke your arm or you whatever, you fell off the truck or something. Is it safe for me if I fall off my truck and break my damn foot? Should I go into the hospital and risk getting COVID, or should I just take a damn take some rope and some fabric and just tie my foot up? Like what the hell? Are the hospitals safe, Doc?
I would say yes. And here's the thing about hospitals and how COVID patients have been sequestered from other groups of patients. So you have, like I was just saying a few moments ago, where you have entire units that were repurposed for specifically for COVID patients. These units have been sequestered, they've been quarantined and everything. So you have very specific personnel who rotate through there. And this is of any hospital you'll go to these days. They're not putting COVID patients with other patients, even if they require hospitalization in an ICU. They're being put in other areas away from sort of general population, if you will. And that's because of just the very infectious nature of this virus.
Okay.
So,
So
in my opinion, yes, you are safe, but again, there is a breaking point to this. Okay, you know, you can't just keep having hundreds of thousands of people get sick, getting diagnosed every week, and then you only really need, if you got about 500,000 people getting infected every week, you really only need about 3 to 5% of them, not even that, to really start to put some major stress on the hospital. Because if that 3 to 5% has to get hospitalized, has to go into an ICU, that's the problem. And 3 to 5%, oh, well, there's 100,000 bed. It may not seem like a lot, but I just said 500,000 patients. You get 500,000 people diagnosed with it. You only get about 3% of them going to an ICU. Yeah, you're looking at least a minimum 20,000 or so people that need hospitalization. That is quite a bit. And that's part of that's where people don't quite get the math at, that you don't need these massive numbers of people to get infected and ultimately end up in an ICU. You only need a small percentage of a very large number to get infected and need ICU and require ICU care for that to start to put stress on the system.
Are you comfortable with the numbers that they're throwing out there as far as the amount of people who come down with it, been diagnosed with it, the amount of people who are dying? Are you comfortable with those numbers, or could it possibly be more than what we're being told?
Um, it's highly likely that the numbers are underreported. I am pretty sure about that. I think this is true of anytime you're dealing with something that is as widespread as this virus. You're dealing with a scenario where the number of cases are really being underreported, and that's simply because a lot of folks do have it and never get tested, never have symptoms, and so they just kind of walk around. You know, am I okay with the numbers? No, absolutely not. I think in this country we've seen over the last 6 or 7 months where you're seeing mortality rates from this virus starting to spike, and that's directly related to the fact that you're having the number of people being infected going up, and a percentage of those people are requiring hospitalization, and that ultimately leads to their death. And so I think in this country, just the approach to dealing with this virus has been a failure for the most part. I despite even the most, I think even some of the most conservative medical providers out here would argue that the response in this country has been lackluster at best. But again, I do want to I want to say this in relation to the vaccine. The vaccine is not some magical panacea that is going to magically make this go away. This virus is not going away even with the vaccine.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like, is there light at the end of this tunnel, Doc? I mean, uh, are we ever, in this country going to be able to quote unquote, get it under control, or get, in your opinion, are they ever going to be able to like get on top of it or get out in front of it at some point?
Yes, they will. This will get under control, and this country will get the virus under control, and but it's going to take a while. Right now, this country hasn't even hit the set metrics just for the number of vaccinations that should have happened by the end of the year. The goal was to hit 20 million, only hit about 10% of that, which is about 2 million. So we're looking, there's going to have to be a massive sort of ramping up of just really government resources, and government is the only the government is the only entity that has the ability to do this. This cannot fall on state and local and municipal organizations to do this. Only the federal government has the ability to really implement a national plan that effectively addresses one, mask wearing, for example, two, a national vaccination campaign, because I know a lot of talk out here for the last few days has been about herd immunity and how the vaccine will help to get to that. But you got over 330 million people in this country. The Pfizer vaccine, if I remember correctly, requires 2 doses. You're going to need well in excess of about 2 billion doses to meet the needs of everyone in this country. And we've only vaccinated 2 million people thus far. So
Well,
we're way off the mark. And so yeah. And
well,
to the comment that you posted up just really quickly, the comment you posed up from Dr. Yaya, I that's always the assumption by all medical providers that, you know, in clinical hospital settings, we call it universal precautions. We assume everyone is infected, no matter what the no matter what the disease or whatever is going on with them. And I think it would be best practice for people, for private citizens out here in their everyday lives, to practice the same type of precaution. Always assume everyone is infected, and that could even be
Yeah.
people close to you. So
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Shoot. My grandbabies come here. They got a damn mask on when they come up in this house. Shit. I don't know where y'all been at or what y'all been doing. Y'all can tell me everything. And the first thing I make them do, take off them damn shoes and wash them damn faces and hands. That's the first thing before you do anything. Shoes off, them jackets and bullshit off, all that shit off. Wash your face, your hands, and put that damn mask back on your little head. And keep it on the whole time you up in here too. Shit, the whole time. I don't know where y'all been at. But what I wanted to ask you was if, for instance, you got a lot of people walking around with it who don't know they got it, right? So those people, I assume, like you said, I guess they're more contagious, when they're first getting it. So does there ever get to a point when a person has it where they can't, transmit it to another person? Do you have it, and does it get to a point where you can't transmit it? And also, can you be reinfected with it? Once you've gotten it and got over it, can you be reinfected with it?
I would say, to the latter question, yes, it is quite possible to be reinfected with it. There were some cases over the summer, some confirmed cases of people having been reinfected by the virus. I know there were certainly some here in the States and some internationally. Um, and and to the initial part of your question, um, I will always assume you're infectious at any given stage of this virus's process. Now, yes, there are periods in it where you're more infectious than other periods of the process. Yes, but you're always infectious, and this goes back to Dr. Yaya's comment. Always assume everyone is infectious.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You have to think everybody's got the bug. Um, so you think that one day we're going to get out in front of this?
Yes,
So
it's gonna take a while, brother. I know we're when this is New Year's Eve. The first of the year is tomorrow. Is tomorrow of the New Year's tomorrow. I realistically see us starting to really make a real turn and really getting this virus under control. I would say probably about mid late summer.
mm,
Um, but the problem is that the things that we've seen become sort of the new normal um, during this pandemic, that will most likely not change.
yeah, yeah. Because I plan on wearing my mask forever now. Regardless of what I see on television and media, they can say they have it 90% under control, and I still will be wearing my damn mask. And I told my wife she'll be wearing hers too, forever. But
No, and this is the part of the problem that this is part of this, because I think people just and I'm talking about black folks specifically here. Black folks seem to have this really one-dimensional view of how disease works in the body or how viruses work. Viruses open you up for other infections. Okay, so but in general, if you're already an unhealthy person that gets this virus, you're more likely to have these these complications that could lead to hospitalization and ultimately death. And
mm,
I think that's part of that puzzle that black folks are not really getting. They just kind of see, well, you get the virus, that's it. People recovering, yes, but people who generally recover best are people who were relatively healthy to begin with.
mm.
And so again, when you look at some of these, and this is one of these major problems that the virus has really truly uncovered in this country, is really sort of the disproportionate levels of healthcare in this country. How you have Black folks tend to have some disproportionate amount of chronic health conditions, hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, so on and so forth, and how these things ultimately contribute obesity. The big one being obesity. Actually, a lot of studies have come out. A lot of studies have come out in the past, over the past 9 to 12 months, which has this most significant risk factor for the development of complications related to this virus is actually obesity.
Mm.
And that's simply
Wow.
because the virus of itself places a lot of stress on the body in general. When your body has to fight off any infection, a virus, whatever the case may be, it places a lot of stress on the body. So the healthier a person is from the outset, the more likely it is that they can fight off a virus and fight it off in a in a reasonable amount of time with minimal complications.
Mm. The Windy City native put something in the chat, and he says mask prevents spreading, not attracting. Is there any truth to that, Doc?
Um, spreading spreading, not attracting. I don't know what he means necessarily by attracting. Um, yes, it
Might have to
prevents.
might have to clarify that, Windy City native. Go ahead, Doc.
Now, spreading, yes, obviously it prevents spreading, but the this the point is that wearing a mask is something that's more of a if you, for example, I don't know if you looked at any documentaries on this on the 1918 Spanish influenza, and you
Hmm.
saw that even during that period, people wore masks. Why? Because these were just universal precautions to take to prevent the spread of the virus of at that time the Spanish influenza. And so again, these are things that have been proven to work in times past. And
Hmm.
again, wearing a mask is about, again, preventing you from spreading it to other people if you have it, especially if you have it and you don't know you have it because you're asymptomatic. Now, if you have it and you're symptomatic, you should be quarantining alone. You shouldn't be around people to begin with.
Yeah, yeah,
Or in the
that
case
makes
if you have it and you gotten to the point where you need hospitalization, yes, you're going to be quarantined in a COVID unit. So,
so.
and
Should you worry less if you go to your doctor and your doctor says, "Well, you have this COVID, but I'm sending you home with it." Should you worry less as opposed to him saying, "Well, we got to admit you." Should you worry less if your doctor tells you, you have it, but I'm going to send you home because your tests say X, Y, and Z. I don't need to keep you here. Should you worry a little less?
yeah, actually there and no. And the reason I say that is if you tested positive for COVID again, I will argue that you might want to get a retest done just to be sure. And then two, um, you let's say you had a retest done, still comes back positive, right? Um, unless you have any symptoms that are directly related to you being short of breath, having difficulty breathing, something of that nature, yes, they're most likely going to send you home. That because again, those resources need to be used for folks who are actually sick and require that around the clock care. Again, and this is what a lot of people are not understanding. If you ever had pneumonia before, I've never had pneumonia, but if you ever had pneumonia before,
I
um,
did. I
and
had it before.
you remember you remember how you felt, how it was really difficult to breathe.
It's the most miserable time of my life.
Yeah, and you remember just how, in general, how difficult it was just to breathe, to get air into your lungs. That's what COVID really is at its core. It causes this really severe chronic pneumonia. Just think of a pneumonia that just doesn't go away, and that you
Mm,
just and your inability and the inability for your lungs to exchange oxygen becomes diminished over time, and it becomes and progressively gets worse. So it's not uncommon for COVID patients who have severely decompensated to have oxygen saturation values of 70% or lower, when in under normal circumstances your oxygen value should be somewhere around 95 to around 99%. Usually most people on this is just on room ambient air.
mm,
And so it's not uncommon for people to see this. And the only other time you really see this, you see this in folks who, for example, who have COPD, people who have emphysema, people who have difficulty getting that proper oxygen exchange in the lungs. And so these folks, they require that oxygen therapy. They oftentimes will require to be intubated and then ventilated, placed on a ventilator. And so and so for those kinds of people, yes, it is extremely common. Usually for folks who typically die of this virus, they have oxygen values somewhere in the 60s, meaning that at
mm.
that you're not getting there's no oxygen pretty much not getting to your lungs at all. No matter if we intubate you, put you on a ventilator, force oxygen into your lungs, it's still not enough. And
Wow.
so it just becomes this kind of slow march towards the inevitable, if you will.
Yeah, well, when you were on earlier, Doc, you said that, if you to the point where, you being hospitalized, it's not looking so good.
I
That
would say
that still that still holds true, right?
yes. It is highly unlikely most people who are hospitalized due to COVID make it out.
Mm,
If you're to the point where you're requiring intubation and ventilation, that's really more of a terminal process.
mm,
So and what I mean by that is that, for example, folks, if you ever knew anyone who has ever had cancer, for example, and they get to the point where the cancer is terminal, it just goes into more of this palliative care type of deal. And I think you was talking about this last week with Dr. Ali, and she
yeah.
she was talking about where palliative care, all palliative care means is that we just make you comfortable until you die. That's pretty much
Mm,
what it means. So if you ever seen anyone, people with end stage Alzheimer's, people with end stage cancer, you just make them comfortable. You just give them palliative care. You make them comfortable. You try to make whatever remaining time they have as comfortable as possible, and try to alleviate as much of that pain and suffering as you can. And again, for folks who go into a hospital who requires the intubation and the ventilation, that is a terminal process. In my experience, all the people I've seen get on ventilators, all the people I've ever treated on ventilators typically did not make it off.
damn, damn. Well, I'm telling you, boy, when Doc Phoenix come up here, boy, be some scary shit up. It's some scary shit being said when old Doc Phoenix is in the house. Um, this this COVID thing, right? Do you think that this COVID thing has and I've spoke to, a good friend, Dr. Yaya, about this. I'm gonna ask you, do you think that this COVID thing has caused more mental problems? Has it caused us to be more susceptible to other things, not just COVID related things, but the stress and
Mm-hmm.
being worried. Are we having more heart attacks this year? Is there more hypertension, high blood pressure this year? But because of the stress that comes with the whole COVID thing.
I have not seen the numbers specifically related to maybe spikes in heart disease or hypertension. I have not seen that, but I would imagine that would be true. Again, as with any condition such as this, any process such as this, where you're dealing with people having to be really isolated. People having to spend weeks, months in isolation in a hospital, whatever. Yes, and just in general, because we know of the financial fallout from this pandemic. Yes, and from what I have friends who are psychiatric. They're prescribers and stuff like that. They prescribe a lot of psych meds, and just some conversations I've had with them, that seems to be very true. Again, that despite all of the financial upheaval we've seen just in regular everyday people's lives, there really have been a few industries that came out really on top. One is the psychotropic medication industry. Two in the health insurance industry. They've made out kind of like bandits, if you will. And part of that is because, yes, you're seeing more people than ever seeking out mental health services. People who have conditions like GAO, generalized anxiety disorder, people who have, people who may just have, varying degrees of depression or something like that. Um, Even folks who may be bipolar, manic depressives and stuff like that. You certainly can see that. But I would say, yes, I think that is all very true, that, you will see a pretty dramatic spike in mental health disorders, mental health diagnosis, and subsequent prescribing of medications from said disorders.
It's crazy, man, because I mean, I've had it affect a few people, that were, close to me and related to me. Now, luckily, nobody I know, you know, died from it. Nobody in my family or anybody that I know died
Mm-hmm.
from it. But I do know people, throughout the internet who have had, people die from it. I know one person who had it and now they're in recovery. So, it's kind of touching us. And I kind of figured it would at some point, because you've had a few people who are right here on YouTube, who talk about, someone in their family who died, one of their parents or their brother or their whatever, has died. So it is touching us. So what I want to ask you is this: do you think that people on here, people on media, people on, Facebook, Twitter, and everything else, did we not take this serious enough, Doc?
Yes, and this is not just true of Black folks, but this is true of Americans in general. Have not taken this virus seriously enough, and I think that's for a few reasons. If you just kind of really get to the heart of it, I think a lot of it is entitlement. Um, the other part of it is just, there has been, the problem. Social media is sort of this curse and this blessing at the same time. But in the case of this pandemic, it has very much been really a curse, because it has allowed the proliferation of so much misinformation out here. I've seen a lot of crazy stuff get said, not just on YouTube, but on, Instagram and some other social media sites. And it's kind of crazy. And even now, I'm seeing some of the stuff. You got folks out here going to the rails about Black folks getting vaccinated and stuff like that. And yes, while I certainly agree that Black folks have every right to be skeptical and cynical about the care that they received over generations from um, from the medical providers and sort of and researchers in general. While that is true, but again, it becomes one of these issues where, for us, what for Black people, what this virus has really pulled back the scab of is that we really seen just truly just how much underlying conditions really affected the overall health outcomes of Black people. Because the Black people that you typically seen who have died from the coronavirus, if you look at them, they were already not in a good state of health to begin with. The vast majority were obese, diabetic, hypertension. Again, hypertension is one of these things that is such a big red flag for those who are is who get this virus, and ultimately that such a big red flag for those for providers who are assessing folks who may have become positive for this virus. And then you're kind of looking at sort of a risk assessment, and maybe thinking, well, maybe they might have complications, that obesity, diabetes, and hypertension, specifically the obesity and hypertension, simply because the virus in of itself affects those ACE2 receptors, which are those angiotensin converting enzymes, which is very responsible for the regulation of blood pressure in the body. And so you're seeing how folks with elevated blood pressure, how they have this really high levels of risk for those severe complications related to this virus. And yes, and I think part of it is that for white people, this is just flat out entitlement and feeling like they don't have to do what everybody else does. And for Black folks, it's not entitlement, but it's kind of sort of on the board of it, but it's also cynicism. But then it's just this natural this natural ability to just kind of gravitate towards people who give you sort of this alternative view, if you will. And I hate to kind of use that phrase, but who give you this sort of alternative fact of what this virus is and what you can do to protect yourself from it and all that, and again, the numbers just really don't bear that out for Black folks. What you're seeing is that yes, Black folks are disproportionately being affected by this virus, not just financially and mentally, but also just the physiological process and the toll it takes on them, and ultimately the mortality rates.
Mm. Well, in the beginning when it first hit, Doc, everyone was saying, "Oh, Black people can't catch it. Oh, well, Black people aren't getting this," and I was like, "What the hell are these people talking about? What do we have on us that is going to keep us from getting this crap?" Like, I mean, what made people think that for some reason Black folks was somehow shielded from COVID? Like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, brother, I think that goes back to the social media being a blessing and a curse. Again, it's a blessing because it helps to disseminate the right information, but it also helps to disseminate the wrong information. And again, so much of what passes as medical fact and knowledge and among Black people tends to just really be stuff by word of mouth, or something you heard somebody post up or say, or some story you heard. And again, for medical providers, we have to operate in what is called evidence-based practice, meaning that whatever we do, there has to be a body of evidence, body of peer-reviewed research that says this works, this treatment works, this particular program of treatment works, okay, this modality works, this medication is effective, whatever the case may be. We have to operate within those parameters. So the research and the data has to dictate the interventions that we do. So I think where that conversation oftentimes gets lost with Black folks, I think for Black folks in particular, a lot of Black folks seem to really think that, oh, well, these folks just pulling this out of their ass, and this is this is just some stuff they made up, and this is really not what's happening. And again, to your earlier question about, there's been studies on prior versions of COVID going back at least 2 decades, okay, and that's just kind of the nature of studying viruses and infectious agents, period. Scientists always study infectious agents. Why? Because you need to know what makes this infectious agent, what makes it more infectious, okay? What makes it less infectious? How can we inhibit it? That has always been done, and that will continue to be done, because that's the only way you understand the particular behavior or the pathogenesis of a particular infectious agent. And this is not just true of this virus. This is true of whenever you're dealing with something like Alzheimer's, cancer, uh, uh, multiple sclerosis, ALS, whatever the case may be, asthma, whatever. But again, that's just always been the nature of how research and science is conducted. And I think if Black folks, for example, and I'm directly aiming this at Black folks because, again, we're talking to Black folks, if Black folks really truly want to have a hand, really truly want to get a hand on this and not be as cynical about these treatments and these modalities and these interventions that are presented to you, Black folks are going to have to be a part of this process. And part of this process doesn't just necessarily mean you need to sign up for these research studies. Part of this process is that you're going to have to push your children into these fields. I'll tell you a bit of advice I got as an undergrad that one of my mentors gave me. And one of my mentors always told me that every Black family should have at least one nurse in it.
Okay.
And she told me that because, for her, she herself, she was, she'd been in healthcare for longer than I've been alive. But the reason she said that is because so much of what happens to Black folks is purely out of the lack of understanding. They don't understand how the healthcare system works. They don't understand how a particular treatment or intervention will help them, will benefit them. What are the pros and cons of all these things? And so again, that was just some advice that I was given as an undergrad years ago. But again, I think this is one of these. This is so pervasive, and I'm not saying this because I want to attack people or nothing, but I'm saying this because there truly has to be some level of participation in this process if Black folks want to have the outcomes that they desire.
Well, we have 2 nurses in the family, so I guess we good.
And you all should be picking their brains again, and that's part of the reason. That's part of the reason, like I said, why my mentor said this to one of my mentors said this to me years ago was that yes, because you should be picking their brains. Because a lot of times, I give an example for me. For a couple years, I actually used to do some private consultation with brothers who had any manner of issues. But one of the brothers, he was an older gentleman, but he had benign prostatic hyperplasia. And he actually had to go in and get a procedure done, and he didn't know nothing about it. He was really afraid of it. He was scared. He didn't understand exactly what it was. And I remember his wife had came and told me about it. And then I spoke with him, and then him and I sat down for like a week, for like a whole week straight, where we would, we met a couple times and then we talked on the phone. And, I would just kind of walk him through exactly what was happening with him and what was going on and what was some options for him for treatment and stuff like that. And specifically the treatment that he had done, the procedure he had performed. And so I accompanied him to that procedure. And so this is why these things are so critically important. Because it kind of, if you have people around you who are in these fields, they kind of help to demystify a lot of this stuff that gets said. Because I'm the first one to tell you, yeah, you talk to a lot of these nurses and these physicians, yeah, they don't do a particularly good job of explaining things to you, especially the Black folks. So I try to make things as simple and put it in lay terms as I possibly can.
Yeah, because sometimes you gotta keep things simple for Black folks. You gotta keep things simple sometimes. But all I know is that, I've been being, well, I guess I can say I've been being extra careful. Because I'm an older fella. I'm in my 50s, so I'm not trying to catch shit. So, but luckily, what I do for a living, the only time I'm really at risk is when I go to the store, I go to my distributor or my suppliers or something like that. Any other time, I mean, because I don't work with people, I work with material. I mean, I have the guys that work for me, they're around, but even with that, we're kind of socially distanced anyway. We're not like right on top of each other.
Yeah.
So, I haven't had to really adjust my life that much. And I'm grateful for that, that I haven't really had to do much adjustment. I wear my mask more than because we wear N95 mask anyway because of what we do for a
Hmm.
living. We
Yeah.
fabricate metal, sandblast, and work with all kinds of equipment, so we wear masks anyway. It's just that now I'm wearing the damn thing all the damn time. But
Brother, I have like I have a stash of masks I keep in my car. I have a stash of masks in my place, in my home.
mhm, mhm.
There's I got just regular hospital masks. I keep N95 mask in my car. So, it's just one of those deals. Those are just really just sort of standard things we all should be practicing. But you brought up a very important point, which goes to an earlier question you asked, and sort of even the previous question you asked, and why, part of this misinformation campaign and part of why people are not taking it serious, why this should be at the really at the top of Black folks' agenda. And the major reason for that is when you look at how this virus has disproportionately affected Black folks in in terms of their finances. You look at the occupations and jobs Black folks tend to occupy, the sectors that they tend to occupy. They tend to occupy sectors that require lots of contact with people. So, it can it could be stuff like, working at airports, grocery type environments, stuff like that. The hospitality industry, so the hotel industry, stuff like that. And understanding that all of this, people don't think about this. This is part of your health. Your environment is an essential part of your health. This goes back to the conversation that Dr. Ali and Don C and I were talking on your channel last week about about epigenetics and stuff like that. All of these things, your environment in of itself affects your health outcome. So where you work, where you sleep at night, whether that's a home where it's properly ventilated, it's adequately heated, it's adequately cooled, it's free of rodents and pests. All those things all those things are vectors, are really vectors for spreading of disease or enhancing your ability to control, or the ability for you to contract the disease, if you will. And so all of these are essential especially when you start to look at how the industries that got hit hardest in this economic downturn, in this recession, have been industries traditionally Black folks have been overrepresented.
Yeah.
And that's really where the rubber meets the road, and why the huge part of where when you think about folks when they started really, and if this country had a real contact tracing program, this would have been key, where you really when you find people who are infectious who tested positive for this virus, and you start to really look at, okay, first thing you got to look at, where do they work, who is in that close circle. And really, that where they work is such a critical component, because where you work becomes this major vector upon which you can spread this virus. Okay. And this is true of any virus, disease, whatever. You're looking at when you begin to look at where people work. So for example, you worked in a hotel, maybe you might have been the doorman, or you were the clerk at the front desk or whatever. um, you're looking at how many people do you see every single day doing this? How many people's bags have you touched every day? And understanding that each time you've ever touched a bag or talked to a person, that's all a method for you to transmit that virus. Those are all chances for you to transmit it. And that's truly where this rubber meets the road, and sort of where the misinformation about how you can get this virus, how it's spread, and really where sort of the damage kind of gets done, if you will.
Yeah, because this thing is so this thing is so contagious, all right, and it's so dangerous that you can like pick it up off of like hard objects, right? You can get it off of a counter or off of
Yes.
a handle or a doorknob, or you can definitely pick it up from there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, this might actually either gross you out or blow your mind. But it's been found in your feces, so in your stools. It's been found on cardboard, glass, plastics, metals. It's even been found in the semen of men.
Mhm.
So again, there's not been many places this virus has not been able to touch. You know,
Yeah.
it you
So
know,
that means a lot of it, and I think I spoke to you about this before, that a lot of it can be sexually transmitted because I mean, y'all together, you're breathing on this person, you're putting your tongue in their mouth and everywhere else on them. And I mean, it can be transmitted, in the midst of y'all sexing it up, right?
it's highly likely. Now, is it highly likely it's transmitted like a traditional STI? No, but the fact that you're in close contact, you're breathing on people, you're exchanging bodily fluids, yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. So y'all better be careful. You get out there, boy. Y'all go to knocking boots, boy. Y'all better make sure y'all got that negative COVID test first. Y'all better make sure them tests is negative first. Cause you start sticking your tongue in their mouth and everywhere else on them. And the next thing you know, you coming home and you got something that your ass can't get rid of. And I don't mean a STD either. God damn it. I
Well,
don't mean if
well,
if all if if all you get is an STD, consider yourself lucky. Go ahead, Doc.
the funny thing about that is that even now, and what kind of even makes that proposition even dangerous, you're looking now where we're in an era where we're about to start to see super STIs. So
Mm,
agents that sexually transmitted infectious agents that are immune to antibiotics or conventional treatments. And so we're in that era. There were a number of cases of antibiotic resistant gonorrhea that were popping up in the UK over the last few years. Certainly I know there have been some cases here in the States as well. But we're in an era where, yeah, it is critically vital to just your personal health and your well-being and just your safety in general that you should be properly vetting the person you're with. And certainly, I think when we talked about this in here, I had mentioned that, like, I would treat this like very much like an STI.
yeah,
I would, again, goes back to the initial comment Dr. Yaya made, and what I said before is that, treat everyone like they're infectious. Again,
yeah.
you know, and if you don't have a stable relationship with a or a significant other, I don't know if I would be out here just kind of um jumping in and out of everyone's bed like that, if you
Hell no. Hell no. I mean, this ain't the time for that shit, man. I mean, it can't be the time because you don't know what people are walking around with,
No,
and
absolutely.
it's gone beyond STIs. I mean, they could be walking around with this COVID shit and don't even know it. You can be walking around with it and don't even know it. So, y'all jump into bed and the next thing your ass in the hospital on a damn ventilator. So, you don't, you know, like I say again, consider yourself lucky if all you leave away from there is with the clap. Because you could have left there with the COVID-19. You could have left with that. So, I mean, it's crazy out here these days, man. And I don't mean to tell brothers what to do, but with this COVID shit, just be careful. I mean, if you're gonna jump on somebody, you better put a hazmat suit on and just cut a little cut a little hole in the front so you can stick your tallywhack out of it and just let it be that way. No kissing, no touching, no nothing. Just cut that little hole and bring your tool out that hole and be like, here you go, girl. This all I got to offer.
No,
I ain't coming out of this damn hazmat suit. God damn it.
no, and I think again, anytime you're dealing with something that's and this has been a principal problem with really getting this virus under control is really kind of people just don't understand just how truly infectious this disease is, and just really. And so in epidemiology, we have there's something called an R naught value. So it looks like an R, then a little zero type of denotation. And so basically that R naught value, typically the higher that number is, the more infectious a disease is. And right now, some of the estimates that I've seen over the last over the past year now about the R naught value of this virus has been somewhere between 5 and I've seen as high as 10, which is something that's extremely infectious. And so again, even though people say, well, this virus is not really all that deadly, it's not killing them. You don't need to get it. You don't need to have 50% of people that get it die from it. No, because the sheer amount of people that because the number of people that are being infected is just so high because it's just such an infectious agent. You only need about 3% of those people to die, to have a really high mortality. No. So if you got 10 million people that die that got it, you only need roughly about 300,000 of them to die to have a really high number.
Yeah.
And I think and right now we're well above 15, 16 million or so. I haven't looked at the latest numbers, but I think we're well above around 16 million or so people in this country who has been infected. Again, to your earlier question about how this has been handled in this country, America is a first world country. Everyone comes here to get the American experience, but yet the approach to controlling this virus has been anything of the sort. In fact, I would argue that less developed nations and nations with far less resources have done a far better job at containing this virus than we've seen here in America.
Yeah, man. It's amazing how it's gone so crazy in this country, and you have other countries. I was talking to because I got a friend that's from Africa. He's from Senegal, and I was
Mm-hmm.
speaking. I was speaking with him today, and he said in Senegal it ain't nowhere near as bad as it is here, and that's Senegal, all right, on the continent of Africa. He said it's nowhere near as bad as it is over here,
Yeah.
and you would think in those other countries, that aren't developed and they don't got, all kinds of doctors and all kinds of money and all kinds of researchers and pharmaceutical companies. You think it would be running rampant over there, but it's not. It's not running rampant the way it is over here.
And that's simply because the most effective means at containing and controlling the spread of this virus has truly been mask wearing, washing your hands, public distance. That truly has been, and these countries were very in the South, the African countries in particular were very good at the very beginning of this pandemic at at closing their borders, limiting travel, preventing people from traveling from other countries into those countries. And so that prevented, again, there were studies that came out of New York this summer pertaining to why the virus spread so quickly, and why it just overwhelms New York so quickly. And the major reason was for that was because there was so much travel from European countries coming into the U.S. at that time, earlier this year. And they were, typically when you come into the U.S. and you're traveling internationally, you tend to come in really three major entry points into this country. So you got JFK, New York, you got Chicago O'Hare, and you got LAX and California. Those are really your major airports, and I would kind of throw the Atlanta, Hartsfield, Jackson into that as well. But mostly your three major airports in this country: O'Hare, JFK, LAX, and those airports have tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people that go through there a day. And that's really the key here. And in New York, they realized when they kind of did sort of these studies, when they finally got those numbers under control, they realized that, like, yeah, it was the travel from these European countries which caused this massive spike in the virus infections from this virus in the state, and which ultimately led to the New York being on their healthcare system being on the verge of collapse. And right now, what we're seeing in California is the same thing. We're seeing that New York and California has switched roles. New York has a very well controlled, has the virus pretty well controlled, but California is just out of control. And you're seeing the California healthcare system on the verge of collapse right
Wow. I mean, I know where I'm living now. I live in North Carolina, and luckily, fortunately, we are not considered. No, we're not considered one of the quote unquote hot spots. Now we have, we've got quite a bit of people who have it. I think total is about, I believe the last time I checked, it was right there at 540,000, with about, I think, close to 7,000 people dead.
now.
Not that that's a great number or anything like that, but that's where we are. I think we're somewhere, we're around 500,000, and about 7 million people have died from it here. So I mean, you know, we're not considered a quote unquote hot spot. So I guess we're somewhat fortunate, on that end of it. But at the same time, I live in Mecklenburg, and Mecklenburg is like had more cases than any other damn county or city, in here. So that is a concern, being that the state isn't a hot spot, but the county that I live in is a hot spot for the state, if you understand what I'm saying, Doc. So
Absolutely.
that's quite concerning. But
Oh,
you know, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, and you're absolutely correct, and that's part of these numbers that for that Black people are not really understanding, that you don't need an entire state to be a hotspot. The area you only really need the area you live in to be a hotspot. And a good
Yeah,
example of that was that if you look at Wisconsin, well, I'm sure you saw some of the stories coming out of Wisconsin over the last couple months or so, where they just got slammed hard. Originally, it was a state that had a relatively low case number. Then September came around, the numbers just started going up. Then all of a sudden, October hits, cases just exploded.
mm,
And what you've seen that consistently in Wisconsin throughout this entire period, even when the case numbers were low, the numbers were high in areas where Black people were
yeah,
at. And
yeah.
I assume that's probably where you're at. And
Oh yeah, Mecklenburg is full of black folks. Yes, it is. It's full of black folks. Definitely
and,
is.
and that's really kind of thing. Like, so when you look at sort of going back to the what we were saying about what we were talking about misinformation and about this, some of the craziness that you and I have heard, people saying Black folks can't get it, they're immune to it, all this other stuff. Again, the numbers just really is not bearing that out. And
Yeah,
people, people say, well, these numbers are made up, they're falsifying these numbers. No, the numbers are being really underreported.
yeah.
The numbers are very much being underreported.
Oh yeah, because I know in this particular county, we've had like I think 63,000 of that 500 thousand or so. It might. Well, I think it's more than that. I think it's about 540,000 in the whole state, but about 63,000 of those cases is right here, and we've had almost 600 people die from it just in this county, and
Yeah.
North Carolina has quite a bit of counties, and I
Yeah.
think we're leading in deaths in the county and the people who have it, in the state, the people who died. We're leading in the state of North Carolina in this particular county and the cases, I believe. I mean, I haven't checked it, in a week or so, but I'm pretty sure we're leading right where the hell I'm at. Yeah, we're leading.
And in all honesty, that would not be the least bit surprising to me. And again, I'm not saying this because I'm trying to beat up on black folks here, but I also think too, black folks have not truly taken the threat of this virus seriously. You
Yeah,
know, and
yeah.
again, we're seeing how this virus has really exposed you know, certainly it has exposed systemic inequities in the health system, has exposed really this, uh, you know, is really one-sided, racist sort of way that the medical system has approached dealing with black people and their health issues. And again, rightfully so. Black folks are rightfully well within their right and are rightfully and are correct in being cynical and not trusting the system. But again, I think at the end of the day, there's really no getting around having an interaction in the healthcare system. There's one thing that you can always guarantee that will happen in your life. At some point in your life, you will have an interaction with the healthcare system. Period. That's 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 just the nature of the beast. As you get
Yeah.
older, we become more prone to having issues. Certainly for black men, as you get older, I hope you all have a primary care provider that you're seeing at least once a year.
Hmm.
You should be getting your PSA testing done at least once or twice a year. You certainly, if you're over 45, I would suggest you might want to start consider getting colonoscopies.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, these are all things that we can say, well, I took this here, I ate this here, and it just magically cured me. But look, at the end of the day, they're just things that there's just things that there's no getting around that black folks are going to have to deal with, and your interaction with the healthcare system is one of those.
Oh yeah, I have to. I see a doctor now, but it's only been for the past few years because I
Is your
talk to.
wife dragging?
Of course, because me, Doc. You and I have spoken about this before. I mean, up until like maybe a few years ago, I was the type person to go to the doctor. I stay the hell away from there. If I feel okay, I ain't trying to mess around with nobody with a lab coat and a stethoscope on. But my wife has gotten on me so much. Oh God, you need to go. You need to go. So do it. Now I do have a doctor. I actually just got checked about 2.5 months ago.
Okay.
Um, Everything seems to be working the way it's supposed to. I've stopped eating meat. Good doc. Since
Okay.
we spoke as well. Yeah, I've stopped eating meat. Shit, I've lost a few pounds. Cause see, I talk to you, doc, and that shit scares the shit out of me. So I'm like, let me go ahead and just leave this meat alone. So I stopped eating meat. I am seeing the doctor. Like I said, it hasn't even been 3 months since I've been. Uh, Everything seems to be working fine. Now I'm not giving up my damn beard, my damn Romeo and Juliet the cigars. Now I don't give a shit. I'm gonna die with one of them motherfuckers in my mouth. But other than that, because the doc was like, "Oh," he was like, "How many cigars do you smoke a week?" I was like, "I don't know. I don't know." I told him, say, maybe 2 or 3. He was like, "Oh, try to bring it down to one." I was like, "Absolutely not, doc. Absolutely not. No, can't give up the cigars, doc. Can't do that." He said it doesn't matter that I have a beer every now and then, but he was like, "Oh, maybe you might want to consider giving up the cigars." Hell no, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Well,
Hell.
again, and I think that's the one thing that I think that's the one thing that that's most important. And I guess for you, I guess my question to you be, since you stopped eating meat, have you noticed anything different?
I feel better. I'm not on the goddamn commode as much. That was the that was the first thing I noticed. Like, I ain't taking a dump, as much. I noticed that immediately. Like, and I think I like that. I like not being on the damn commode as much. Um, I feel lighter. My sense of taste has changed quite a bit.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't feel as tired and groggy when I wake up in the morning. I've noticed quite a few things. I've noticed
Okay.
quite a few things. Quite a few things, man. I've lost a few pounds, of course. Um, yeah, I've noticed quite a few things, quite a few changes that I like. The first week was rough though. That first week, that first week, that first week was rough, Doc. I mean, because see, we don't eat red meat anyway.
Yeah.
We I mean, I don't know how long it's been since we've eaten red meat. Like I said, I would slip out from time to time and get a cheeseburger, but I haven't I hadn't did that in a while, and all we ever ate really was fish and chicken and turkey anyway. But
Yeah.
now we don't eat any of that. None of that. I mean, I may have some tuna, here and there, uh, some baked fish, maybe once every other week or so. I mean, but it's all vegetables, man. Everything is plant based. Um, Staying away from the dairy and all that kind of stuff. And I feel different, man. I feel better. To be honest, to wrap it up in a nutshell, Doc, I feel better.
Yeah.
Feel better.
Well, again, um, in general, meats tend to take a lot out of the tend to take quite a bit of energy to digest, far more than plants.
Hmm.
Um, and so yeah. Um, and I think that's a good thing. Again, I'm typically a person myself. I occasionally I might eat a steak, maybe once a year, maybe once or twice a year, maybe. I mean, and that's a very big maybe. Most of the time, I'm usually a seafood eater myself. I really well, I'm actually lactose intolerant, so I don't really do the dairy products and stuff like that. So but in general, yeah, I think a lot of those things that these are all little changes that you can make that actually you can see a noticeable difference in your overall health rather quickly. And I think these are all things that certainly during the times we're living in, where where we where just even some of those changes in the way we eat and our dieting and stuff like that can make some pretty dramatic differences in our overall health, and certainly probably can help deal with some of the mental health issues as well.
Mm, yeah, I believe that too, man. And like I said, I feel better, man. I just, feel different. I'm used to it now. Like I said, that first week, boy, it's like, damn, I can't have no chicken. I can't, I was like that groggy, like grumpy, like going through withdrawals, can't have no chicken, can't have no turkey. I was like, damn, but now it's normal now. I mean, it's pretty normal now. uh, yeah. I mean, I don't even think about it anymore. And like I said, I've lost a few pounds, and I feel better. I feel like I got a little more pep in my step. I feel like I'm sleeping better. Like I said, when I wake up in the morning, I don't feel as groggy. I actually kind of spring up out the bed. So I mean, it seems to be paying off. But I don't give a shit what the doctor say. I ain't stopped smoking these damn cigars. He- that ain't gonna happen, Doc. Absolutely not. Hell no. I'll give up the meat and the dairy, But these goddamn Habitos and these Romeo and Juliet, hell, absolutely not. No. You got to let me keep something. If I'm gonna die doing something, I'm gonna die smoking them. Damn it.
You saying actually reminded me of a story I read over the summer of it was a black man, a brother. He was a World War II veteran, was like 105 years old. And they asked him what was the secret of long life, and he said he smokes a cigar a day and eats ice cream.
Yeah.
It was kind of interesting.
Right.
So you might be onto something.
Yeah, let them go. I'm weak for these damn cigars. I just can't. I let them go. You asking a lot. You say, okay, stop eating dairy. That shit. You asking a lot when you tell me to put my damn cigars down. But you asking the impossible. But El Ghost says something up here, and I want to because I don't want to keep you too much longer because
Yeah, I actually have to
the grandbaby blow off some fireworks and shit in the backyard. But
my wife is probably gonna start trying to grab me here shortly. So yeah, what's up, bro?
Brother L Ghost says, Brother X, my white associates feel the virus numbers are overreported because the hospitals are paid by the feds when deaths are counted as COVID-19 when they are really other issues. Is there any truth to that, Doc?
No, and two, unless he can provide some significant evidence that shows that's the case, I'm just gonna have to chalk his comment up to just nothing more than conjecture and kind of nonsense, to be honest. Again, I, I don't want to pick on this, but anytime I see the way somebody spells the word white, I already know where this is coming from. So,
yeah. But
I'll just leave it at that.
Yep, there it is. There's your answer, brother. The Doc Phoenix says that's totally ridiculous. Yeah, but I appreciate you coming on, man. I'm gonna let you go, Doc.
Okay.
I didn't want to keep you up here too long anyway, because it is New Year's Eve, and like I said, everybody's here. I told everybody at the beginning, everybody's here. The grandkids are here and everything else. They want me to shoot off fireworks, shit in the backyard. So, we're gonna do that. And my wife, she's cooking some pasta, and
Okay.
everybody gonna eat, and we got the fire pit going on, and kids want me to
Nice.
put
Nice.
marshmallows on a stick, and burn them on the damn pit. So I'm going in the back and do that. But I appreciate you as always, Doc Phoenix, man. You gotta come back, man.
Brother. I do apologize because I missed your email last month. When you were asking me to come on out, I literally just 2.5, 3 weeks ago, I literally just finished up a semester, and so I just got slammed with a bunch of exams, and so things just actually started to calm down for me here in the last week or so, and then two, I just get a bunch of messages from folks asking me if I want to come run some COVID testing centers, and so I'm good. So
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
it's just kind of crazy for me. So
I assume you were kind of busy, but it's always a pleasure, man, to have you on, Doc Phoenix. I always learn so much stuff from you, brother. All jokes aside, I always learn much stuff from you, man. And like every time you come around, it's always a few months because it always seems like something has changed, in between the time that we speak. So I always like to catch up with you, man. 'Cause, I mean, out of all the people who come up here and talk about this COVID stuff, man, you're usually the one that comes and kinds of lays it down pretty solid, man. You and Dr. Ali, y'all come and y'all lay it down, man. And I appreciate you, brother. I do.
no,
You know.
absolutely. Thank you for having me. Again, I appreciate you extending the offer for me to come on. Yeah, I would love to do this again. I think next time I think maybe we should talk about. I would like to talk about diabetes and and diabetes in general. I think next time I come on, I think I might.
Yeah,
I think it'd
let's
probably be
do
good if
it.
we talk about that. Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's do it. That's a plan right there. Next time you come on, y'all heard it here first. Next time the good Doc Phoenix come on, we will be speaking about diabetes, black folks. You know? Yeah, yeah. Next time you come on, that's what we're gonna talk about, man. When can I get you back on, Doc? When can I get you back?
Um. Um. I probably might be able to come back on near the mm, maybe the end of January. Yeah, I want to say
Okay.
near the end of January.
Sounds like a plan. Sounds
Yeah.
like a plan. My
Yeah,
brother.
just hit me up and we can work out something. No worries.
All right. Absolutely, man. Absolutely, man. Once again, Doc Phoenix, man, I appreciate you, brother, man, and peace. Happy New Year, all that stuff, man. And I'm looking forward to chopping up with you, good brother, in 2021. All right.
Thank you so much, brother. You have a great New Year as well, and have everyone in the chat have a great New Year too.
All right. Peace, brother.
All right, peace.
Yeah, folks, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up because you know I'm gonna go in the backyard with the grandkids and let them damn bug the hell out of my ass, and you know I'm gonna shoot off some of these damn fireworks because y'all know I got a stockpile of goddamn fireworks, man. So I'm gonna shoot some of those off in the backyard for the kids, you know, cause I had to go up in my attic, you know, cause I got these things here. They're 100 shot solar punch. They're solar punch repeaters, and they have like a, point. You stick them in the ground, and you light them, and they like, and I mean, they go way up, way up. And I got some party girls. You know, you kind of sit these on it because I got a fireworks table actually back there, and you sit these on the table and you light it, and they shoot up into the sky. Let me see what else I'm gonna light. I'm gonna light these. Now these right here are out of this world. These are called California illegals, and these things they look small, but these things shoot so goddamn high in the sky, man. And when they explode, right? When they explode and they do their thing, they got so much freaking debris that you can like hear the damn shrapnel dropping on the top of other people's houses. They go in the sky and they be like, boom. And after that, you just hear the shrapnel dropping on other people's houses. You know, that's why I put it far to the right of the house, you know, where the opening is, you know, in the back. It's an opening. So when they shoot out, they kind of, and you know, there's somebody who lives that way to my house, and then there's another across the field, there's another house right here. And when they shoot up, the shrapnel actually lands on other people's houses. It's just like missiles. I'm also gonna shoot off a few of these. These are something called cutting edge. They kind of do the same kind of thing. And you know, I'm gonna be lighting multiple of them at one time, you know, because I don't know how to just light one thing. I'll be lighting multiples at one time, y'all. You know, and I make them get their ass on the deck because they be trying to convince the old man, oh, could we light them? Hell no, you ain't lighting shit out here, boy. So that's what I'm about to do, y'all. I'm probably gonna light off about, because I got a bunch of these. I'll probably light off about 6 of these. I light off about six of the party girls, and I'm gonna light off, I don't know, maybe about 5 or 10 of the California illegals. You know, so that's what I'm gonna be doing, y'all. You know, but before I go, you know, I wanna number one, man, wish you good folks, man, a happy new year, a safe, healthy, happy new year. Yeah, man, I want y'all to be safe. I want y'all to be healthy. Don't drink. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Doc Phoenix, anytime, man, my brother. And y'all heard Y'all heard what Doc said, right? When he come back, we're going to be talking about diabetes, all right? Because I know some of y'all out there are diabetics. So we're going to be talking about diabetes. So you might want to have your black behinds here, all right, to discuss it, all right? You heard what he said. End of January, we're going to be talking about diabetes on the Ask the Doc series. So make sure you have your black behinds here. You heard me, folks. This is important. This is about the health of yourself or maybe the health of somebody in your family. So you're going to want to be here for that discussion. You want to be here to ask some questions. All right. Mark your calendar. End of January. Doc Phoenix will be back here and we'll be chopping it up about diabetes. But number one, man, I want to say thank you to all you good folks, man, for sticking in there with us, man, through this year. I know 2020 was crazy. A lot went on, and I'm not just talking about on media, on this damn thing here. I'm talking about a lot that went on in the world, a lot that went on in the world. All right. The coronavirus, the marches, the killings, the crime, the politics, the everything. 2020 was a crazy, crazy year. And I can't say that I'm sad to see it go. I'm not. I'm not. Only thing about 2020 that was good for me is that I made more money this year than I made last year. Other than that, 2020 wasn't a great year. It definitely wasn't a great year for this country, and it wasn't a great year for black people. It wasn't. Because I know this whole pandemic shit put a lot of people out of work. How do I know? Because it put a lot of people that I know out of work. All right. It put people out of work who had built their business for years, but they were working in an industry that was closed down. And a lot of them, it never recovered, man. It never recovered. So this wasn't a great year, man, for us. It wasn't. And hopefully, just hopefully, man, 2021 is going to be better. 2021 hopefully will be more prosperous. Black folks will have more opportunities. Hopefully black folks will have more money, And I'm not talking about whatever the damn government is going to give us or give y'all or give whoever. I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about black people sprouting up and doing some things that maybe they didn't have the heart to do this year. Maybe they didn't have the money to do this year. Maybe they didn't have the ambition, or desire, or ability to do this year. I'm talking about that stuff. That stuff. So hopefully, man, 2021 is better. All right, for all of us. For all of us, man. Hopefully 2021 brings more prosperity to black folks, more civility to black folks, and hopefully more peace to black folks. All right? And I'm not just saying this, to stroke y'all egos, because y'all know I don't give a damn about your damn ego or your feelings. But what I do care about is whether or not y'all gonna be all right, whether or not y'all gonna win or lose, man. Don't think I come up here and talk shit to you. And that's an indication that I don't give a shit about black people, because nothing can be further from the truth. All right? I'm a patriarch of my family. My father is dead. I am the old guy. And I have many people underneath me with my last name. Many people. Many people. Now, that's my community. That's my family. I built it. But when it comes to black society in a whole, I am concerned with it. I'm concerned with that too. Now, don't get me wrong. I ain't concerned with you Negroes as I am my own community that I built. Absolutely not. Why would I be? That wouldn't make any sense. But I am concerned where black people are going. I am concerned where black people are headed. I am. And I would like to think that more of us are too. I know I'm not alone in that thought. I know I'm not alone in having hope for some black people. Now, of course, some of us you can't have hope for because they don't have hope for themselves. But I would like to think that there is some of us out there who not only have hope for other black folks, but also have hope for themselves, have hope for their families, have hope for their children and grandchildren. And maybe, just maybe, man, 2021 will be that year where we don't see as much crime, where we don't see as much killing, where we don't see as many baby mamas, where black people have better jobs, black people starting more businesses, black people having more, black people doing more, black people living better, and most importantly, black people being better. That is what I hope for black folks in 2021. Now, I know out there, man, I probably say a lot of things folks don't like. And guess what? In 2021, I'm going to continue to do so. I'm going to continue to say shit you do not like. That's not going to change. But one thing I'm never going to do is fuck with people. That's something I've never done. That won't change either. But we're going to bring you some new things, man. And hopefully some things that you like. 2021 is a new year, so we're going to start off with a new deal. Now, some of the old elements will remain, but we're going to bring you some new stuff. We're going to bring you some new type of streams, and we're going to bring some people on here that you probably never would expect to see on here. Because I'm going to use my reach and bring them in. Y'all folks would be surprised who OX knows. But a lot of you been watching me for a few years. Y'all know I know a lot of folks. But you'll be surprised in 2021 who you'll see on the T.P.O.T YouTube page. I'm going to surprise a lot of you. But what I hope is that a lot of you surprise me too. Surprise me with doing some things that I would have never expected you to do. Making moves that I never would have expected you to make. Seeing success that I never would have expected you to see. I want to be surprised too. That is my hope for black folks. All right? Because regardless of anything else, man, when black folks are doing better, guess what? Black society in a whole is better. And I don't think anybody can disagree with that. I know we get up here, man, and we talk all kinds of nonsense and do all these kind of things and say all these kind of things, but I think at the end of it all, man, it's all about black folks doing better. Especially those black folks who suffered a lot this year. Especially them. Especially them. Because a lot of us, we going to be all right. A lot of us, we have houses and cars and money in the bank and, we all right. We all right. But not everybody, man. Not everybody's all right. Not everybody. And hopefully, just hopefully, man, 2021, they will be all right. Those are the things I want to see. Those are the things I want to hear about. And if I see enough of it, God damn it, those will be the things I talk about as well. All right. All right. So I ain't going to run no commercials tonight or nothing. What I am going to do is leave you with 6 words. The first being Happy New Year. And of course, y'all know what the other 3 gonna be.
Open your mind.
The good doctor is in the house. The good doctor.
Open your mind.
In the house. The good doctor in the house.
Open your mind. Only from the Prophet of Thought Series Media.
You know.
Open your mind. 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 Open your mind.